I think this is where we start to see Apothicons, the allusion to Monty or what happened to Monty and the Shadowman after the collapse of the multiverse.
Clutch Squad, what is up, and welcome back into the Perkaholics Anonymous podcast. It is episode 24. I know you guys have missed us. It's been the holidays. We took some time off. My whole setup got messed up. Shout out to Apple for making it right. Thank you. We're back. The setup is back. MZC is back. I am back. And Perkaholics Anonymous podcast is back. I know you guys missed us. We're so glad to be back with you today. We have a loaded slate to talk about here today with some major announcements, some DLC 2 talks, some overall state of the game, back and forth banter between MZC and I. But before we get started, MZC, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Perkaholics Anonymous podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Same, dude. I'm glad the PC sorted out and everything got hooked up. Apple kind of costed for a little bit. Not that it really affected too much of the show because there's not really much content going on over winter break in terms of Treyarch's side. And it's just totally normal. It happened last year, happened the year before, and it's going to happen again next year too. But yeah, man, I'm excited to be back. Hopefully we're not too rusty, and hopefully we can keep this episode flowing and the conversation and the banter up so it doesn't get stale at any point, which I doubt it will because we do have a lot to talk about today. Some great topics, some DLC 2 speculation, and we'll call it speculation, of course, and a great community corner afterwards as well as an announcement that you're about to make.
Absolutely. Guys, normal operating procedure. If you're excited for Perkaholics Anonymous podcast to be back, leave a like, make sure to subscribe, comment down below on anything that we mention here today. And if you want to be featured in future episodes, comment down below as well for the community corner. But before we jump into the main section of the show, MZC and I want to introduce something new we're really excited about. MZC has updated his channel membership. So there's going to be 3 different tiers, just like how there is now, but we revamped it. We did a whole look at it. And the tier we want to talk about today is called Perkaholics, which we believe and hope will be our most popular membership tier. Real quickly here, Perkaholics is where all extra Perkaholics Anonymous podcast content lives. Every episode moving forward will have an extra 30 minutes for Perkaholics members, and there will be a members-only episode each and every month. Furthermore, Perkaholics members get priority when we feature and respond to comments on the show. So if you enjoy the podcast and you want even more of it, the Perkaholics tier membership on MZC is the move. You can hit the join button right down below this video. We've been overwhelmed with the amount of support that you guys have given us when we started this podcast on MZC's channel. We cannot thank you enough. We want to produce more. We want to give you guys more value within this show. So that's what we're introducing today. We couldn't thank you guys enough. Anybody that supports moving forward, thank you in advance. All right, MZC, let's start with what we got, up on the chopping block number 1. I think it's a lot of what people want us to talk about and, what they want to hear from us. The current state of Black Ops 7 Zombies, how Astra Malorum has held up over the winter break. And like you said at the top of the show, it kind of is the new Treyarch model, DLC 1. Maybe there's a little bit of lag after it and launch being included in that as well. It seems like they have a lot of content at the beginning of their last 2 Zombies titles, and then there is sort of this lull period, which it's not the end of the world. We understand that the devs are human too. We understand that the devs have lives and, they have to go see their families over the break and stuff like that. We can't expect them to work year long and just give us 24/7, 365 content. But where are you at right now with this title currently, and just your general thoughts?
Yeah, it's something that's come to be expected. The devs have to definitely go home. They already work insane hours, especially during the before the launch of a game because of the crunch time and stuff. So, and it's not like they were all from one specific area. I'm sure they're from all over the world, so you definitely want to let them have some downtime so there's no burnout on their end in terms of fatigue. And this is something that's always happened. It was just a little bit less noticeable back in the day because we didn't have like a live service model for games like we did. We had the DLC packs and the season pass and whatnot, but it wasn't updated where like every week we were getting something new. So there is some downtime, especially after like the past 2 years. It's like, okay, what am I going to do, or am I still going to stick with the game and whatnot? But I think they've done a pretty okay job of filling the downtime this year. Like we have had 2 LTMs in the meantime. Of course, the LTMs are mostly like, if we're being honest, you play it like once or twice, you have some fun with it, you beat it, and then you don't touch it again. There's of course, if you are a fan of other modes or you play all of Call of Duty, you're just outside of the zombies canopy. Like myself, I've been going for Nexus Horizon the past couple of weeks, so I've had stuff to do. I've had a lot of fun in the game. You know, we've played some Resurgence, we've played some multiplayer as well, but for probably just the zombies fan, I could see where this has really been kind of a dry period in the game. And again, it happened last year as well. They did just release of course, Season 1 Reloaded patch notes and Season 1 Reloaded update all together. And just sifting through them, like, you know, we got the Cosmodrome Survival, which we knew that was coming, that was promised to us. We got the Fallout collaboration and LTM, all that good stuff. And then we had a slew of updates, primarily just around basically quality of life and some fixes. They did fix the Ether Shroud not ready glitch, so thankfully that's one that was like, it has been heavily requested since last year. I'm glad they were able to fix that. They also made it so that they have the perma perks are now like individual icons at the bottom of the screen. They're lit up so you can actually see which of your perks are perma perks, other than it just being a little bit smaller on the HUD. That's another great quality of life change. If you go through these, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can just see all these if you haven't looked through them for yourself already. But most of them are just like stability fixes, so there wasn't like a big huge like overwork for, you know, the LGM1. There was no big tweak to Oscar, and that's what I was really looking forward to. Again, I'm very, you know, happy with the quality of life changes that we did get, because a lot of this stuff is things that we've been asking for, complaining about for even in the BO6, like that Ether Shroud glitch. But overall, there wasn't like a huge sweeping change made to Astra Malorum, which I was really disappointed to see, because, you know, when the whole community was up in arms about Vaetherion, and I know that that's like the majority, you know, a big majority of people were, you know, and we were very anti-nerf Vaetherion right out of the gates, but they worked very quickly to get that done. That was I think it was completely reworked in like 3 days, which I understand, you know, that's the launch of a game. You need people to get the Easter egg completion rate up. You want people to be able to beat it, so it's not quote unquote unfair. But, you know, I saw almost, maybe not as much, but a lot of people very vocal about how they felt about the Wonder Weapon on Astra Malorum before the Christmas break when the map first came out, even how Oscar didn't give you anything, or just Oscar in general, and they didn't make any changes there. Now, if they're taking more time to really deliver on that and kind of rework the Wonder Weapon, maybe add a charge shot variant, or I'm not a dev, so I don't know how hard it is to code. My suggestion has been having the single UFO bounce to 2 or 3 zombies, so you can basically kill more zombies without having to wait for any sort of regen there. That would have been really cool to see. But my hope for that was that it was done before the Christmas break, because, you know, we're going away for basically 3 weeks. We knew there was going to be a lull and a gap in content here, and it would have been really nice to be like, okay, over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to go for a really high round on Astra Malorum with the Wonder Weapon, because right now there's not really a good strategy for that. Or, you know, maybe Oscar has the ability to drop you some power-ups or some extra, something like that, so it kind of spices up the gameplay and gets you a reason back onto Astra Malorum during the break. But with none of that happening, and then there being no massive change to Astra coming out of the gates with Season 1 Reloaded, to me, it's very underwhelming. And not saying that the map is dead or that it's not a good map at all. Like, we were both very high on the map when it first came out. I did say it would be a lot better with one or both of those changes or some extra changes here or there, but it does seem like it's gotten the Citadel Daymore treatment, where it just kind of went flat for a long time, and then people never really picked it back up. Obviously, there's a cult following for Citadel. It's one of the better maps on BO6, but, you know, it seems like it got the same treatment it did last year, where you hit the holiday break, nothing happens, the hype for the map dies down. Now, I think it will pick up with DLC 2, even more so. Like, it'll probably be more well received than the Tomb was last year, and I think that the longevity of the game throughout the year will be better than last year. But yeah, it was just disappointing to not see that. So the current state of the game, I think, is like people play the LTM, people get the new weapon that comes out, people might camo grind a little bit or whatever. But I've seen some people being like, you know, I haven't really touched Cursed in a minute, I haven't really touched the game in a minute, I haven't really touched this in a minute. Of course, that comes with the nature of there being downtime and the holiday break. But yeah, just like with the patch notes, again, grateful for what we got. There was a lot of good stuff in there, but at the same time, it does really hurt to not have either of those buffs. And before I throw it back to you for your opinions, I want to highlight what they did in Cold War with D Machine. Do you remember how they changed it like way later on into the game's life cycle, where you could actually pack-a-punch the DIE? Okay, that wasn't until, like, I don't remember exactly. I mean, I should be able to pull it up, but like that was way late into the game's life cycle. And not to say that, like, in a bad way, you know, lack of better terms, like that nobody cared about it, but I bet you if you ask the average COD Zombies player, they probably don't even know that you could pack-a-punch the DIE, because nobody went back to do that, because it was so far past the point that nobody went back in and did it. Now, maybe if you were playing Outbreak that's a little bit of a different story because it was on Outbreak and you could do that. I think that might have been around the time that update actually went live. But in terms of just the map of D Machine, nobody was really going back to D Machine to Pack-a-Punch. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at now, is like we're, with 115 day being in a couple days here, we're coming up on DLC 2 rapidly. Astra Melora might get lost to time with that, where like it isn't either just doesn't receive that update, or people don't go back to Astra Melora and be like, oh, I want to use the LGM1, like, because people go back to Shadows of Evil all the time to use the Apothicon Servant, one of the best wonder weapons of all time. People go back to Origins to use the staffs. I don't think anyone's going to go back to Astra Melorum to use the LGM1 if it's just not in a good state, or if it's a mid-wonder weapon. Obviously every wonder weapon doesn't have to be the Apothicon Servant. We've said that multiple times in the podcast here. But again, it is like, what is going to be the sticking point? What is going to be the draw to go back to Astra Melorum after DLC 2 releases, or instead of Ashes of the Damned, aside from it just being a little bit of it's not being as small as a survival map, but not being as big as Ashes of the Damned. Outside of that, what's going to be the hook in the pole there? And I feel like even if they were to update the wonder weapon next week or in 2 weeks, again, it's going to be like, well, who's really going to go back to do that? I'll do it because I'm a hardcore fan. I'm sure you would go give it a try and see how it plays compared to how it did before. But like the average person probably won't be going back to Astra Melorum to use the LGM1 past DLC 2's release, unless there's like another, gap season where we get like grief or something. But overall, man, I don't know. It was, good patch notes, good updates, good quality of life. But overall, with the state of Astra Melorum, I think it does kind of still sit around like an, 8.5 for me. Could have gotten up to a 9.5 with, some buffs here or there with the Wonder Weapon or Oscar or whatnot. But, it kind of just feels like the air for Astra Melorum has died out, but not in the same sense as Citadel Daymore, where it seems like the lack of updates last year to Citadel and Swords until afterwards feels like it killed the momentum for the entire game. I don't really feel that that's what's going on here going into DLC 2, because it just feels like people are more interested in the story. People actually like the original crew coming back. People are invested in what's going on right now and see like a long-term bigger picture with the game, where last year it just felt kind of grim at this point. So it's not quite as down bad as that. I think they managed the gap a little bit better this year, but it's still not like, best case scenario would have been we got some sort of a wonder weapon buff before going into the Christmas break to carry us through. But yeah, man, what are you thinking? Because I know you haven't been on the game as much as you were before the Christmas break.
I think there's a lot of compounding issues here that it's actually interesting from a developer versus player, the studio player relationship. I think is interesting, and this is a good point of the year and the good point of the game cycle to really look at it, because a lot of people have to remember here, you have to put everything into context. So Black Ops 6 came out in October of 25 or of 24,
yeah,
right?
Like the 25th,
so
like late October.
Yeah. So at this point, this is the 15th straight month we're consuming zombies content, which we talked about a lot before this game came out. This has never been the case before. There has never been back-to-back games with zombies content quite like this, with this level of in-depth detail, and I don't want to say sameness, but it's like, all right, Black Ops 6 and Black Ops 7, there's a lot of crossover, and there's a lot of things that are the same. There's a lot of stuff that is different also, but you're basically asking players to still be invested in something that at this point it's something that they've played for 15 straight months, which is not impossible. I think Call of Duty and I think Treyarch has actually done a pretty good job given those circumstances to kind of lay the groundwork for where my mental is headed toward how the state of this game really is. From a personal experience, it's interesting, and this is not me complaining, this is not me trying to sound like, I don't want this to be negative in any sense of what I'm about to say, but there's too much content on this game. And I know that that's the main concern where everyone's going to disagree with me. That's fine. I will concede that I'm in the rare subset and I'm not the norm with this. I think that if you look from a player perspective, you always want more content, and that's what you want when you're consuming a game. You don't want it just to be, hey, we're going to buy this game, and then there's never any quality of life updates. There's never any of this. There's, after the first 30 days, I'm done. Like I said, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying for personally me, there's so many things that I have just not even gotten to in this game, which is a little bit exciting for me on the back end, because I don't know how interested I'm going to be in purchasing a game like Modern Warfare 4, whatever is coming out next year. So I was telling MZC this probably last weekend or last week. I'm kind of saving a lot of the curse stuff to play in the off year. A lot of people aren't going to do that, and that's totally fine. But I think Treyarch has done a good enough job where you could look in the mirror at January 11th of 2026 and be like, okay, they can't say we didn't give them enough content. They can't say we haven't given them a cool crossover collab like this Fallout thing that we're seeing here. Even though I'm not a big fan of the LTMs, I'm not a big fan of the crossovers. That's not the Call of Duty that I grew up playing. That's not why I started to really love the game and love the franchise and love the brand. But that's how the modern model is for a lot of these games. You know, we're going to do crossovers. We're going to do season updates, season 1, season 1.5 reloaded. I am in accordance with you. I think that the 1.5 patch notes, the season reloaded patch notes are kind of weak. I can't believe that they didn't do anything of really big substance to Astra Malorum, at least not from, you know, what we've read and what we've heard. To me, I feel like their one big drawback is that you fell into the same trap back-to-back years, which is what you were alluding to in a lot of what you said prior to me kind of kicking off my portion of the rant. But it's like, you saw that Citadel had the legs. You saw that people were interested in the setting and into the castle and everything else going on. And then the swords were largely underwhelming, especially on a map where it's like, okay, that was a very co-op friendly map. You could each get one of the swords, and then it's like, how many of them are really worth getting at the end of the day, especially when you kind of think about how the modern style of zombies really, you know, matches up with the rarities and the pack punch and even, you know, the gobble gums in these last 2 games where it's like you could get a pretty good strong weapon that rivals some of the wonder weapons pretty early on in a lot of your games. And you had the same transitional issue with Astra Malorum. It's not like the LGM is that simple to get. It's not difficult, I don't think, but it's not like you could hop in and you could get it, you know, very, very early in your run. For most players, there's a lot that goes into actually getting that wonder weapon for it to be the reward, the payoff that you put your time and effort into it. I would have liked to see it get a buff. Like we said, guys, maybe that's us being a little nitpicky. I know a lot of people have fun with the weapon and no one is denouncing that it's cool. It's it's fun to use and it looks good and the inspect is cool and everything and of that nature. The Necrofluid Gauntlet was the same way, but I still think the Necrofluid Gauntlet is clearly a better wonder weapon, all things considered. So what I will commend them on before I throw it back to you, I think what they have clearly separated themselves this year in Black Ops 7 Zombies versus last year is that imagine everything that I just said about, you know, Citadel and Astra and all the parallels there. However, nobody really gave a damn about Citadel's story. Nobody really cared about Black Ops 6's story and the characters. And all right, maybe not the characters. A lot of people like the characters, don't get me wrong, but the interaction with the characters and the story and the maps and the game mode in general was a lot of people's big question and big issue with Black Ops 6. I think they've done a significantly better job through 2 of the main story maps, so to say, for this game, that it does give them some grace. It does give them some extra points as to saying, hey, I think a lot of people will look back on Astra Malorum more fondly than Citadel because of that fact, because of the characters, because of how the Easter eggs have shaped out, because of, you know, basically Shangri-La being in the map as well. Now, if that's something that they continue into DLC 2, which we're going to talk about later on in this episode, I'll be interested to see. And I think it's a formula that they've proven through 2 maps so far, Ashes of the Damned and Astra Malorum, that has had success. All the other stuff, obviously a big positive for the majority of the community, the survival maps, cursed mode and stuff like that. But, you know, like you said when you were going, it's to the point where too much content is almost, it might as well not be content at all. It might not be content at all. How many people are playing curse mode? And I know that community was really hot to trot at the beginning, and rightfully so. Easter eggs are a part of the zombies community. Nobody's really looking for that stuff anymore. Very small subset of people. And I think that that's kind of something that even, we talked about last year with Grief. How many people played Grief the first 3-4 weeks? I think a lot of people. After that 4th week, what was really the player base on Grief? So it's interesting. There's a lot of differing talking points back and forth. I'm excited to see what they do moving forward. This does kind of seem like a lot of filler stuff with the LTM and with the Fallout. And hey, we're just going to try to plug in some holes here while we're waiting for DLC number 2.
Yeah, and I think you brought it up at the end there about Cursed. I actually wonder now, just in the moment here, how how much of Cursed's development in survival mode is taking away from an Astra update or other updates around the game, potentially for zombies? I'm not saying that they're scrapping
Maybe
an LTM or other things like that, but originally when the game came out, they said no plans for Cursed survival, and then everyone on Twitter was like, we want Cursed in survival mode, and then they were like, okay, we're looking into it, and then looking into it went to, hey, it'll be ready for season 2. So I'm wondering if they were like, all right, let's actually just go all in here to bring Curse to survival since so many people want it. And I don't get me wrong, I want it too. Now, the disconnect with me and everyone else in Curse mode is that I'm not like a huge fan of the relics. I like the idea of them. I just don't like how personally that there's no, for all the drawbacks you get, like PAP 4 is cool, Ultra Rarity is cool, Golden Armor Plates is cool, but like, do I really want to spend all the time racking up points to get pack 4 while I have mimics spawning in every 2 seconds? While I have all these other things. I know like the more relics you get, you can kind of pick and choose what you want. Obviously, the more they get added in, there might be some that like do, less annoying things like mimics, all that good stuff. But there's no like benefit to each individual relic. Where I think that they kind of missed a little bit is like, if the Dragon Wings, for example, had still, had their negative ability there, but also allowed you to get free fast travels, I think that would have been a cool, like, plus and minus to the relics. I think that it's not necessarily a complete miss. I still want them to do Cursed. I love base Cursed, where you just spawn in with a pistol, go to the box, play with a wall weapon. Like, that is the closest thing to traditional zombies that we've had since, really, I mean, Black Ops 4 had some starting weapons there, so really like Black Ops 3 days that we've had, and I really enjoy that aspect of it. But yeah, it just seems like that there is still a huge cult following for Cursed. I'm not saying don't go away from it. I'm not saying don't go away from the relics. I'm just saying that like now I'm seeing people be like, hey, we need some hints for the relics, or it's too hard, or I'm not really keeping up with Cursed for the overall audience. I know it's made for the hardcore player, but yeah, it is kind of like almost like the same thing as Grief here, where it's like, are there really a ton of people playing it? You know what I mean? So overall, I mean, we go into a whole different episode on Cursed and whatnot, but yeah, I don't know. I think that they're in a good spot. They're in a better spot than they were last year in terms of obviously with content, with the hype moving forward, even though we know, like, we'll get into the DLC 2 segment here very shortly, but even leading into that, there's not a doomsday thing like the Tomb coming where people were like, oh my god, the game is so over, like I'm so done after the Tomb. Like, there's still gonna be potentially 3 DLC maps after DLC 2, which sound to be a little bit bigger than this map, which will have like a big like back end of the game loading. I talked about that with you, I think 2 days ago. We were like, hey, like maybe, they get these smaller maps out in the first 2 DLC seasons, and then that stops the drop off of people being like, I'm done, you know what I mean? I'm done. We go back to the bigger, not as big as Ashes, but bigger scale, larger scale maps in the back half to kind of keep people invested throughout the entirety of the year. And that's what I've been saying since the start. It's like the longevity will be pretty good. But before we move into the DLC 2 talk, I actually want to do something really quickly on the fly. We didn't have this planned for the show at all, but I was just thinking about it. I want to quickly talk about Haven's Hollow and the resemblance between Haven's Hollow and what they did for the development of Black Ops 6 Zombies. This is something, again, completely just off script here, off topic. I just want to have some fun with this. Jeff and I have been playing Haven's Hollow a lot, and we love it as a Resurgence map. I know a lot of people probably like, I don't really play Resurgence, I don't play Warzone at all, but for the sake of this video, and the sake of the argument, I kind of want to compare and contrast the Haven's Hollow Resurgence map and Liberty Falls. Obviously, there's no Janus Towers there, but they are in the background, so they're there somewhere, as well as Shattered Veil. I just want to like get your thought. Do you think that Haven's Hollow was made before Black Ops 6 Zombies, or do you think that they did Black Ops 6 Zombies and then kind of turned that entire area into a a bigger Resurgence map? Now, my theory here is that back in Cold War, there was intel and rumors about Liberty Falls, this whole area being an open world Outbreak style map for this coming, or for last year's game, for Black Ops 6 Zombies, or whenever that was scheduled to come out. And there was supposed to be like a huge wall around it that Richtofen had built to kind of keep, the population intact, all the experiments, all the zombies, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then we had a lot of intel for the area in MWZ, and of course it ended up being basically half of Black Ops 6 Zombies. Do you think that they maybe had that plan for an Outbreak experience, broke it up? Do you think that, it was supposed to be its own thing, and then they were like, okay, at the last minute we have to do Black Ops 6 Zombies, let's scrap some of this stuff and build together? Like, what are your thoughts in comparing Resurgence, Haven's Hollow to Liberty Falls? And I guess we could keep Janus Towers out of it, but Shattered Veil too.
Honestly, I'm so glad you brought this up, because when I was talking about my last points, I actually meant to include that the extra content and everything that's been involved with this game so far is actually kind of spilled into Warzone and Resurgence, because we have been having so much fun on that. Like, we'll hop on and we'll play that. If I'm doing something solo and you're doing something solo, you've been doing, some of the other mastery camos as well. But like, if we're, just on a Discord call but not playing the game at the same time together, I'll be playing zombies. But if we are playing the game at the same time together, we'll be on Haven's Hollow. So that's a zombies experience to us almost in its own right, really, to add on to all the other, content offerings that have been in this game as well. So I did wanted to bring that up. So this was a good call by you. But to answer the question, and I don't think a lot of people are going to like this answer. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But to me, let me say this so it makes sense. I think they had some sort of not blackout, but blackout's actually a part of it, but they had some sort of Outbreak style thought up and ready for Black Ops 7
Endgame.
This was going to be for that, Haven's Hollow was going to be for that. However, Black Ops 6 was kind of forced on them at the last second, so they had to break up that experience into that game, which I don't think are going to like, because I'm basically saying that Black Ops 6 was all supposed to be one thing, and then they just had to section it off to give us enough maps basically for Black Ops 6, whether it be Shattered Vale or, Janus Towers or, the Reckoning and Liberty Falls. That's why the Tomb was kind of inserted in there weirdly. Like, it doesn't really make any, like, it makes sense. Like, Citadel and the Tomb make sense, but they also kind of like don't make sense at the end of the day compared to the other 3 maps if you're looking at everything from a top-down view. So I think they had Haven's Hollow done first. Had to splice it up to give us content for Black Ops 6, because they were told, hey, you're Treyarch, you're making zombies for Black Ops 6. But the all along plan was Black Ops 7's maps. And then I personally think they were not going to do survival maps. They were going to do season offerings or in-season content offerings like Outbreak, and Haven's Hollow was going to be one of those, for example. And there might have been another one for a different season. That's my personal opinion.
I think you're kind of right on track there. And if you actually look at Endgame, I don't know if you know this, but the Tomb is a section of Endgame on Avalon, and Citadel is outside the map somewhere, sort of like how Janus Towers is on Haven's Hollow, but it's not quite
kind
there.
of crazy.
So yeah, like you have Terminus, which is like a like universally, I think the majority of the community would be like, Terminus is the best map on BO6. It feels like it was developed for zombies, even though it was like kind of like a World at War map, I think.
Terminus or Citadel.
Even though Citadel wasn't completely utilized, there were so many areas out, like people wanted more of the castle to be opened up. Hindsight's 2020, whatever. We're not going to get into that. But I'm kind of with you. I think that they probably had maybe like one big game thought up where they're like, hey, we're going to have the Terminus crew escape Terminus, and then, maybe stop at Citadel, right? Like maybe stop at Citadel, and like the Tomb and Citadel were supposed to be kind of the same experience. Like maybe there's a way to get down to the dig site, because they're both in Avalon, they're both in the same area, and then you have like the final map or whatever for either BO7 part of the experience, maybe it's launch experience, who knows, like was the Outbreak experience of Liberty Falls, where like I don't even know if you really needed to have Liberty Falls in the story, like Panos and all that. None of that shit really mattered, to be real.
Right.
But like the ability to basically, hey, you have to grab parts from the low town area or like Main Street, and then in the church area, and then you have to go all the way up to take some of the parts all the way up. So it would basically be like a massive scale Easter egg, like round base style Easter egg, but on one single Outbreak map. In Cold War we had a couple of Outbreak Easter eggs, but they were predicated on round 3, if you're on this map, there's these parts in this area, but they could also be in this area depending upon which map you get. It was broken up based on whatever map you ended up on. And then by round like 3 or 4, it started to sync up, so then you always get the same map every time. You finish on round 5 where you'd be able to go to the bottom of, was it Ruka? And then you'd finish the Easter egg down there, where I think the idea for, and this is all pure like this is literally just us just bullshitting right now. This is not like based on anything that Treyarch has said or come out and said, but I feel like that whole area of Janus Towers, the mansion, and regular like Haven's Hollow area was all supposed to just be one big experience to push you from the time when the outbreak happens to basically you're helping Sam or Richtofen in that area. You choose your path and then you end up at the boss fight at the end of Reckoning, and then that sends you into what the story they really wanted to tell, which was basically all of Black Ops 7 zombies. Because like the narrative this year, again, even though it hasn't been 100% like perfect, like, oh, it's this coherent, fluent story and you can tell exactly where they're going, it's definitely been closer to like BO3, BO4 narrative than even Cold War. Like Cold War had good narrative. Like it just has been so far leaps and bounds better than last year that it's like, okay, I feel like now that we're kind of getting past things and we're kind of can use some critical judgment based on this game, and of course it could potentially peter off at some point, but it seems like it's going to go really strong here. It would also explain the lack of cutscenes, right? Like last year we had Citadel cutscene, we had Terminus cutscene,
yes,
but then suddenly the Tomb has like no cutscenes. Suddenly Shattered Veil doesn't really have anything either. Those all seem like Shattered Veil, Liberty Falls, and Reckoning all feel like it could have just been like one in between cutscenes, right? Like you hit Liberty Falls, you get the cutscenes for that, and then you go on to the next step of the Easter egg. Next thing you know, you get the next cutscenes for fighting, Z-Rex and whatnot. Maybe that could have been like the Easter eggs are added in over the seasons. They could have been all one big thing. Who knows what the original concept was for that? But I thought that's just interesting because you and I, like I said, we've been really enjoying Haven's Hollow. I think it's actually probably one of the better Resurgence maps they've ever released. I think it plays really, really well if you're playing against real people. Against bots, it's a little wonky, but it was clearly, it feels like designed to be some sort of a Resurgence map and not really zombies at all. And honestly, seeing some of the extra areas like outside the bowling alley, the other streets, right, they feel like I wish that we could have played in those areas in Liberty Falls, because you and I went to, we've talked about this a couple of times, but Jeff and I went to Harper's Ferry, which is what Haven's Hollow and Liberty Falls is actually like based off of in real life. And like when we were walking through it, we're like, man, this could be an area, that could be an area, and it was so small in comparison to what was actually there. And I know it was kind of supposed to be like the survival-esque map, but actually seeing a lot of it opened up with Haven's Hollow is like, damn, this is what we actually thought it was going to look like when we went there. But no, overall,
you still have all that, right? You still have all that footage. We could do something
for like a
what we're gonna do is for either this is what we're saying, guys, sign up for the Perkaholics membership tier, because I'm signing MZC up for a lot of work by suggesting this, but I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna put it out there so you guys hold us accountable, and for all the Perkaholics members to hold us accountable too. I don't know if we could fit it into a 30-minute post show, but maybe we will. However we're gonna do it, might be a post show, might be its own episode. Can we get into a private match of Haven's Hollow?
I don't think so yet, or at all.
However we're going to do it, we're going to compare the IRL footage that MZC and I took of Harper's Ferry, and then we could either compare it to Liberty Falls itself or Haven's Hollow.
Even. Like that'd be a pretty sick, yeah.
We could do whatever's going to be easiest, because, or whatever is going to be the most inclusive, because that would be an interesting, dissection of, hey, here's how it looks in real life and here's how it looks, how they recreated it. But to add on to what you're saying, it's an interesting piece of dialogue, because going back to what I was saying, I think that the Haven's Hollow experience easily could have been an Outbreak style experience, and then another offering they gave us was Terminus, because Terminus to me really feels like an Outbreak level stuff, and even they might have had it more expanded and they had to condense that down to give us a round-based match, but with the boats and the different islands and everything like that, I really think Black Ops 7 was going to be Ashes of the Damned, Astra Malorum, potentially with these Outbreak experiences, lingered in within the season reloaded, and no survival maps. I think they did the survival maps last, as kind of like, hey, we're going to do this as a different offering. That was one of their last pieces of planning for Black Ops 7, because they had to do Black Ops 6. But before we move on, I want to provide an interesting piece of perspective that this is all speculation still, guys, but to me, the more I think about it, everybody goes, oh, Black Ops 6, Black Ops 7 back-to-back years, they kind of slopped it together and this and that, and, how many times we're going to give them the pass. Understand all that. We hear all that. We've heard those criticisms. We've had people on the show that have been, critical of Treyarch and of Activision Call of Duty. Totally understand. But I want to posit this little theory here. To me, and like I said, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure the lore of Black Ops 7 is at the stage it's currently at if they were never forced to make Black Ops 6. To me, if Black Ops 6 doesn't exist, I don't think that they have to pull the string of bringing the original 4 back. And I know a lot of people were wary of that when they first heard that, and that was leaked a long time ago. I do understand all the different timelines of that, but I think people were very skeptical of that, and they've really hit the ball out of the park with that. To me, I think they roll with the Terminus crew story by themselves from if it's just Cold War to Black Ops 7, or if Black Ops 6 was supposed to be the content in Black Ops 7, however it was going to shake out. You know what I'm saying here. But since they had to go back-to-back years, they had to really kind of hit the nuclear button and go, we're bringing back the OG crew, and that's going to carry us into back-to-back years of Call of Duty Zombies. And so far, I think that's been playing out beautifully for them in Black Ops 7.
Yeah, like I said, if you go back and watch like the episodes that we've had with Stanley or Afterlife, even Donuts, even the Roundtable, like the biggest concern was like how they were going to handle bringing back the original crew. I genuinely, and I've been saying this for years now, I think that was the plan all along. I think BO4 got cut short. They were supposed to have a season 2, a year 2 kind of like expansion where it was going to be more of like an ending to the story. I think they got their budget cut. They said we're shutting this game down. They had to basically wrap up the story. There was no Monty fight. There was no Great War. There was none of that. And then I think when they condensed into the Dark Ether, there was always the plan that, hey, these characters aren't really gone. Like everything's just convened and converged into the Dark Ether. My theory now is that this is either the first cycle that ever existed, and it's like, you know, just playing out to get back to, you know, Monty and Shadowman, or this is how the cycle actually goes, is that, you know, the cycle that we know is the events of BO2 with Origins up until the end of BO3, they get reset into BO4. You basically get the break out of the cycle. You think that you've defeated it by them killing themselves in the forest and ending it all or whatever. And in reality, that just resets the loop for them to be reborn, and all of what happened in Cold War and BO6 is just leading up to, and even this game is leading up to Primus coming back at the end of BO6 going into BO7. I think at some point we're going to get a Great War map again. This is just all my theory and speculation, but we're seeing, of course, you know, Shangri-La has the Templar zombies, more and more the original packet punches back, more and more of the original universe is now bleeding into and appearing here in the Dark Ether and becoming more and more prevalent. Like you said, I think it's been a very good way to handle this. I do think that by the end of this game, the Terminus crew, the Cold War crew story will be wrapped up. Moving into the 2028 game, 20th anniversary of Zombies is probably going to be primarily focused around either this version of the OG crew or like Primus will come back or something, and we'll be back to trying to defeat. By the end of this game, we'll see the Shadow Man, we'll see the Apothicans or something like that, or a teaser for the next game where we're back into the main loop or trying to go back after Monty or whatever the case might be. But yeah, overall, I feel like they've done a pretty good job with it. I do want to move into some of the DLC 2 talk because I've been really excited to talk about this for a while. A lot of people have been asking me my thoughts. There's been, again, this is where I'm going to preface all of this with it's all speculation. Nobody really knows what's going on. All of the information that we're about to go over and cover is from X. Both I've taken excerpts from Ghost of Hope and Reality UK. I want to mention that Ghost of Hope has been wrong a lot very recently, not to throw any shade at anybody, not to take any shots at them. I know we follow each other, so I'm not like trying to go at him or anything, but like Activision and Infinity War and Sledgehammer have both come out on some of his recent pieces and been like, no, this is not the case at all. This is complete like wrong information. So there could be, you know, maybe them leaking information to people to then see who is leaking what to Ghost of Hope. Who really knows? So again, take all of this at face value. This is just stuff that they've been putting out there. However, this is stuff that's been, you know, regurgitated multiple times over. This is all, again, the reporting of Ghost of Hope and Reality UK. They're usually right a lot of the time, but they have been wrong as well. But so again, you know, don't take this word for word. We're just kind of going over it to have some fun, to speculate, to try and drum up some hype for DLC 2 and get everybody back in the zombies mentality after the winter break. So DLC 2 is supposedly going to be called something along the lines of Helltown. We saw at the end of Astra Malorum, the crew gets grabbed by the Shadowsmith and the Warden and taken underground into what seems to be hell. So that kind of lines up there. We do have one image teaser of it, which kind of looks more like Cortifaxy for those of you that played Vanguard or are into it. It kind of gives you like that aspect of the Dark Ether. And then the rumors and the reporting is that it's going to supposedly be a remake of Alpha Omega. Again, to what extent, we don't really know. We hear all the time like, oh, it's Alpha Omega. I don't want to, you know, Alpha Omega is one of the worst maps of all time. I don't want this. It's already bad. Comparing it to the Tomb already, I think it's way too early to make any sort of judgment. 115 Day is in a couple days. Treyarch said they're going to come out and do some teasers for that. So I'm sure we'll have a greater understanding of if it really is just an Alpha Omega remake or if that's just part of the map. That's all good and fine. Right off the rip, man. I mean, with Alpha Omega, I think that, you know, the map itself wasn't a great, memorable map, but it was actually one of the better storyline and narrative maps of all time. You had the first and only time that we had both Primus and Ultimus as playable characters on the same map. There were 8 playable characters. Obviously, you couldn't have 8 players, but you could mix and match between Primus and Ultimus, which was a really fun dynamic. That was the last time that we saw them all together on a zombies map. Togder Toten had the Victus crew, so it is actually more significant to the storyline than most people think or really believe. There was a lot of great intel again with them kind of creating or getting the elemental shard, which is what they used to collapse the multiverse. That was needed. It was a huge part of the ending. I think that's what they all binded their souls to as well. I could be mistaken, so if you actually want to correct me in the comments below, please do. It's been a while since PO4 was out, and I was really entrenched in the story there, but it's got a lot of significance to the OG crew. Is pretty much my main point of this. It's the last time we saw all of them, all that good stuff. So before we come out and go, oh dude, I don't want anything to do with Alpha Omega, I don't want, it was terrible, blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm Nuketown's been done a million times in zombies and in multiplayer. We've seen it a million times over. But if it is just like one small portion of the map, I don't see any problem with it personally. I know like we all want new, we all want refreshed, no reused assets, da-da-da. I'm not opposed to it, especially if you're getting 3 extra zombies maps after this. It could potentially fit into the storyline very well. And as long as, again, same thing we said with the OG crew, as long as it fits into the narrative, okay, I think I'm okay with where we're heading here. And before I throw it back to you, again, this is pure speculation here. It is rumored that there is going to be kind of like a Blood of the Dead, potentially Mob of the Dead crossover, which again would really, really fit the story for Richtofen, because that's where Richtofen, the nicest one, died. That was where their original purgatory prison was supposed to be for that group of characters, and Primus was supposed to be stuck in Blood of the Dead forever. That's why the Warden set the trap, or not the Warden, Brutus set the trap for him. Brutus was in cahoots with the Shadow Man. So there's a lot of like OG lore that could potentially come here. And I think it would be really interesting to see them kind of revisit the Alpha Omega Blood of the Dead combination here, with it being like a really small map or a smaller map, but have like insane lore implications, just like the OG Alpha Omega did. So, Jeff, what do you think of right off the gates when you hear Alpha Omega? You hear potential, all of that coming back.
So let's we got our speculation hats on for this episode, guys. So we appreciate you speculating with us, because it's that point of the year, like we've talked about. We gotta kind of see what's coming up next. We gotta speculate. We gotta talk about it. We're gonna discuss with you guys. We're gonna hear your comments down below, and we're gonna go from there. But I do believe, MZC, the Treyarch has maybe shown their hand, and they actually did a good job of concealing it for as long as possible. But and I could be wrong. A lot of people could be wrong. You could be wrong. I could be wrong. Ghost of hope to be wrong. There's a lot of different factors here, okay? But I think, interestingly enough, the Shangri-La aspect of Asher Malorum has given it away for me a little bit, but this is my reasoning. When you think of Ashes of the Damned, what was let's think of the build up to each one of these maps. Oh, okay, Ashes of the Damned. Oh, it's Transit Reimagined. It's well, not really, actually. A lot of people said that's what it ended up being, Transit Reimagined, more or less. It's really not even that, but if you had to kind of quantify it, that's what I would say. But what did people say? Oh, it's Transit Remastered. That's what everybody thought coming into the launch of this game. We're going to get Transit. It's going to have a bus. We're going to be moving around. Modern day Transit. Okay, not really. When you're playing Ashes of the Damned, do you even really interact with like the callbacks really that much? Like, yeah, the Cosmodrome's right there, Ascension, I get it. Diner is right there, all these different things. But it's like, you don't really even think, I don't think of Transit really that much at all when I'm playing Ashes of the Damned. Okay, cool. Astra Malorum. Brand new, hot off the press, really no hints of anything that was going to be a callback, and then what they did with the callback with Shangri-La was absolutely epic. Basically a 95, probably 100% to 0 approval rating. I have not seen one person say, oh, I can't stand that this kind of looks like Shang and it's in this map. No, everybody loves that, to be truthfully honest with you. If somebody doesn't, please put in the comments below. So now let's kind of take, all right, we got 1 and 1. Now we're back to kind of pre-Ashes of the Damned. Oh, this is going to be Alpha Omega. It's going to be a remaster, this and that. How many times do we got to revisit Nuketown, blah, 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 blah. So if we're following the pattern here, to me, I think it's going to be 90% of a new offering, 75% of a new offering, with a quarter of the map, with 10% of the map being some sort of beckoning back to something that we've seen in the past, whether it's Alpha Omega, whether it's Blood of the Dead, Call of the Dead. So that's what I'm looking for personally when it comes to DLC 2. I know that there's a lot of different ways that, they could go about doing it. I don't know. Are you saying that Helltown is kind of the quote unquote what people think that's what the name of the map is going to be called, or that's just how it's been described so far? Because I don't know about that. I think you're going to see something that's Ash of the Damned, Astra Malorum. They're not like totally similar. They they got their differences in the naming of the map, but interestingly enough, I think that Cherrick is going to continue with the unique offerings. And maybe, like I said, I don't know though. I don't think I'm kind of on the fence about maybe there'll be 2 wonder weapons, and one of them will be whatever, Blunder, Gat, whatever it may be. But the main wonder weapon of the map being something that's we've definitively seen so far, something in the past. I'm not on board with that theory so far. They haven't done that yet, so that would be diverging from the norm of what they've done through 2 maps. But there's a lot of speculation. We'll have to see when they come with the teasers. But to me, I mean, MZC, I got you on this kind of long-winded answer here. The Tomb came out January 28th of 2025. Season 1, of Black Ops 7 has 25 days left. Correct? Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, probably like 3.5 weeks. 3 weeks.
Scheduled to end February 5th. I'm expecting there to be a teaser for DLC 2 in this map tomorrow or sometime this week.
They've already confirmed it's 115 day, so Thursday is when they're going to be.
I wouldn't be surprised. But what have they been doing? They've been releasing stuff early and kind of sporadically and intermittently they did it for Astra Malorum at least. I wouldn't be surprised if you see something big 115 day like how we saw the Astra Malorum intro scene with Motley Crue. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw that on Thursday and you saw like a 5 or a 7 second little blip Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I can see there being some build up. I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit more down on this leading towards more of a remake. I know, so the 2 leaked and rumored survival maps for season 2 are going to be Mars Survival from Astra Malorum. That's just that whole area basically being Shangri-La,
okay.
And then Nuketown Zombies.
That makes sense.
If we're following the path here of every single survival map up to this point, it's just been walled off areas. There's nothing like reworked or anything like that. So if Nuketown Zombies really is going to be a survival map, that whole area has to be relatively accurate to the original Nuketown or Alpha Omega to some degree. I'm sure if Alpha Omega is part of the map, they would just wall off the Nuketown area, throw your perks on there, whatever it might be. We could even go into this a little bit later too. I'll come back to this point, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's gonna be like 50-50 rather than it be like 3/4 of the map is new, 25% is just Alpha Omega. I would say it's probably like if I had to be just on my gut hunch, I'd say it's like 45% Alpha Omega, the bunker area, and then maybe there's another area that you teleport to, or there's like a giant crater outside the map with the 115 drill that we never got to play in, and it was on the original Nuketown loading screen, something like that. I think it might be a little bit more of a remakey map because that's just kind of all the stuff that we've been hearing. Of course, that could just be speculation, could be BS that was fed to whoever to get that out there and kind of trick everybody. But I don't know, I'm more on the fence about it leading more towards a remake-ish map. I'm not going to say it's going to be 1-to-1. I don't think that's the case at all, especially from the leaked image that we've already gotten. But yeah, we have at the beginning of this year, it was rumored that Mob of the Dead or Alcatraz was coming back in some way, shape, or form. That was from launch. People were saying, oh, the prison's been found or whatever, and kind of people went up and down there. I think another good, nod to that potentially being true is that Brutus was one of the Vault Edition operators for Black Ops 6 Zombies that made absolutely no fucking sense. Like, even Klaus made no sense last year. He wasn't mentioned once in the storyline at all. And then all of a sudden, Ash is the Damned. Day one, you walk into to Ashwood and he's just sitting there. So Brutus, I'm thinking, is gonna make some sort of an appearance. And if there was ever a time for him to come back as an elite enemy or whatever, or be in the storyline whatsoever, I think this would be the map to start doing that. And then that, to me, if this does happen, where let's say Brutus is back and this is a very heavy OG crew, maybe like let's say nobody gets their soul back this map and it's more focused on like the Warden versus the OG crew. I think this is where we start to see more of like potentially Apothicans, not in this map, but like the allusion to Monty or what happened to Monty and the Shadowman after the collapse of the multiverse. And this is where we start to kind of see a lot of the original Ether stuff come back. And I think that kind of would eliminate some of people's angst with potentially the Wonder Weapon. The rumored Wonder Weapon, everyone knows as the Blundergat is supposedly coming back for this one. There's another one coming back. There's a second Wonder Weapon. Nobody really knows what it is. But it would make a lot of sense that this map where, you know, we see a reused Wonder Weapon in the Blundergat and a reused area in Alpha Omega, which was one of the biggest and most expansive lore maps from the original storyline come back. It seems like this is kind of how they're going to reintroduce, like, all right, you know, we're heading back towards the multiverse rather than the Dark Ether. And I think that was the original leak for the Primus crew coming back around the time of Terminus and Liberty Falls, was that there was like an enemy or a big bad in the Dark Ether that was trying to get the blood from this crew and then restart the multiverse, which is kind of what we see now with the, you know, the Warden collecting the souls of the characters. And maybe that's where we're trying to head towards, or what the end goal here is, basically, you know, multiverse expands again. Next thing you know, I again, personally, I think the game's going to end off on, like, you know, whatever happens. And then like the big teaser or the cliffhanger is that, like, you see the Apothicans escaping the Dark Ether. They come out of some shit like that leading into the 2028 game. But, you know, again, even if this is kind of a reused map in a sense, or there are a lot of reused elements here, like with the Wonder Weapon, or parts of the map are just cutouts from older maps, I think it could play very well and be a great narrative map if they tie it into the older things. I don't want to judge it until we get it. Now, if we get it, if it's basically just like 80%, 85% Alpha Omega, and there's like the boss fight arena's different, I'll be like, okay, like, you know, maybe if the storyline's not like peak, I'll be like, this is kind of what these last three maps better be really good. But I don't know. I'm not gonna go out and crucify this and be like, guys, we're fucked. It's the Tomb 2.0. The whole game is dead after that. From this point on, it's a downward slide. Like, I'm not gonna do that until it comes out, until we see it. Like, there's no point in doomsdaying it right now and crying about this until we get it and then we have it in our hand. Now, again, like I said, if we get it in our hands, it's not good. I'll be like, okay, what are we doing here? We said we didn't want, like, what is this? But if this is just a one-off map where it's old storyline type, whatever, like, wait until we get it before we all just have a massive freak out. Because we did the same thing, like you were saying about Transit 2.0 and reuse things. We did the same thing before the game where everyone was like, it's gonna be terrible, it's just gonna be this blah blah blah. The community sentiment was really bad. Then Ashes of the Dam came out and everyone was like, holy shit, this is actually really good. So I think just reserve judgment till it drops. No reason to freak out now. Make your assessments after it comes out, before we all have a giant hit the nukes button, you know.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, me and you have been consistent on that talking point. That's kind of what we incorporate into our brand when we're talking about stuff. We're having back and forth dialogue and conversation, but I'm just playing percentages and patterns. Like, I am going to be more disappointed. And this is like, you're a podcaster, like, you're a part of the scene, even, you're a part of a YouTube channel. It's going to be more one of those comments than anything, like how most people look at the game. But I would actually be more disappointed if they just were like, oh, okay, what has been the one thing compared from this year compared to last year that we've given them a lot of flowers on? Maybe not on Perkaholics Anonymous, maybe behind the scenes, maybe a little bit of both. They got everything locked up tight. They got the leaks locked up tight. They got the Dark Ops calling cards. They have the relic locked behind like 19 firewalls and 16 different bank vaults. Like, this is crazy. Like, we are squarely 3-4 months into this game's cycle, basically, at this point. Almost 2 seasons in, and they don't have all the relics solved. I mean, I find it very hard to believe. I will be very disappointed if all of a sudden, we just did this for launch in the first map, and then we just screw it. We don't care anymore. We're just gonna let the leaks fly, and we're gonna let the data mining fly. I just don't think that's the case. I think people are gonna be very shocked when they load into DLC 2, and it's a completely different experience. And maybe this is the thing too. The more I'm thinking and hearing and listening to you, there's a couple of avenues that could go from these leaks. Let's take these from what we've heard to their logical conclusions. Let's just play percentages here. Okay, so the rumors and leaks for season 2 or whatever it may be is that the survival maps are Mars and like Nuketown. Okay, let's think about this from a logical perspective. Mars makes a lot of sense. Them just zoning that off and making the boss fight arena survival map totally makes sense. Now, However, Nuketown being rumored for one makes actually zero sense because to me, like, I'm not saying if the map is how it is, it does make sense, but it doesn't make sense that would get leaked to me because that defeats the whole purpose of the map. If we know about what they're going to wall off for the survival map for DLC 2, that kind of kills the mystique and the aura and the energy of everything, because think about it. We didn't get a leak. There was no pre-Astra Malorum dropping leak that, oh, it's in the code, survival map Mars, at least not one that I saw. So that's what made the teleporting to Mars on Astra Malorum. That's what made the shock value. That's what made everything so cool about it, because zero people knew about that. Literally no leaks, no rumors. I don't think so.
It was Zone X and Ghost of Hope. They both didn't come out. They didn't come out and say Shangri-La. I actually did like a day before, but it wasn't like a month before. Originally, people thought that was actually the remaster.
I didn't see it, and I'm pretty online. I'm just saying, perceptive-wise.
It's the same thing they did with like the pre-Astra Malorum picture, where it was like a meme basically, but it kind of spoiled the story. It's the same. They did the same thing for the Mars thing.
I guess I didn't really look at that. I guess I didn't really care about that.
But again, like, you got to look at it in perspective, like how small of a portion of the map was Shangri-La compared to Astra Malorum. You know what I mean? Like, it's if you stuck that in the main map, that'd probably be like one of the main POIs, a little bit bigger than any of the 3 buildings that are actually on Astra Malorum. But it's like, you know, it's 20% of the map, 25% of the map. It's not, oh, the whole thing's a fucking the whole thing is a Shangri-La remake. This map, it's terrible. Da, da, da. I'm sure there will be other areas, and if not, then we can have the discussion. But like, just kind of doing the critical thinking and at least trying to piece it together based on the information we have now. That might be an area, but it might not be the only part of the map. You know, I'm more of like a wait and see kind of person, especially with how inconsistent some of the leaks have been recently. So we'll see, but also don't be surprised if that's a chunk of the map.
It's just, to me, I feel like the internals, they were so upset about stuff getting out for Black Ops 6, and maybe rightfully so, that was something that they were going to work on this year as an initiative for Black Ops 7. Like I said, if they're only going to do that for you know, pre-launch launch and then season 1, okay, that would be kind of weird to just not do that, you know, not have the same integrity and have the same, you know, record keeping internally for the entirety of the game. But it's like, I feel like they put out these floaters to kind of see who's leaking and what's getting leaked, because they've given out piece of information that are like 6% true, but it is a bigger look. It is a window into what is actually the case. Like I said, like I mentioned, like, okay, they, you know, what, you know, just go back to Ash of the Damned. Oh, this is Transit remastered. Well, no, not really at all. Actually, it's like 0% Transit besides the diner. Basically, if you really think about it. And then, Astra, even like you said, even if Mars was on, you know, was leaked before Astra Malorum, it's like nobody had it dialed up like that. Nobody had it, you're going to do 90% of the Easter egg and then you're going to transport to basically Shangri-La, and that's going to be the boss fight arena. Now, like you said, are they going to run that same playbook back again? Is it going to be brand new map? Okay, we're 9/10 of the way done with the Easter egg, and bam, now we're suddenly transported to Nuketown. I don't know if they're that predictable. I don't know if they're going to run that playbook back 2 seasons in a row. Could be wrong, but this is the thing too, MZC, like where we were talking about, let's wrap this back all the way to the beginning of what we started this episode with about the state of the game. To me, Black Ops 6 was never like this. For me and you, for the average player, for the diehard, for the high rounder, for the Easter egg, you know, speedrunner, for the camo grinder, for none of the player base, Black Ops 6 was like this, in my opinion. To me, as soon as they drop a teaser for this, we're going to see similar numbers as Astra Malorum, in my opinion. Could be wrong. Me talking about it with you here today is, you know, it's got me itching. It's got me hyped up again. I never felt like, and granted, that's a lot of the storyline. I want to see what happens next. They've already, you know, restored souls 2 maps in a row. I find that hard to believe they're going to go away from that. That's another thing too. I know that, okay, maybe I'm sure you know more than anybody from what you see online about, there's 5 DLC maps, correct? That's what you've been seeing?
Much, yeah. It's rumored that this is like the break from, because like everybody knows, like every map
I would be cautious.
Every map so far, people are like, I'm kind of getting the fatigue of like, we already know what's going to happen, in the sense that like somebody gets their soul back, we fight, you know, Shadowsmith, and then, you know, da da da. This is supposedly, at least rumored to be like the break in the monotony of the story, which to be fair, like nobody had a problem with it in BO3 though, because in BO3 everybody was like, oh, this is awesome.
And everybody had a problem with it with
the
the
next
two.
map, we're gonna, I can't wait to see whose map is next. Is it gonna be Takio or is it gonna be Dempsey? Well, we actually knew Dempsey right off the rip, but like, is it Takio or Nikolai? And then what's the last map gonna be? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's kind of the same boat here, right? Like, we're kind of doing the exact same thing.
I just think,
but like again, back then it wasn't a problem. Now it's like, it's too predictable. It's like it was predictable back then. I mean, what, what are we doing?
But I just think it's like all right, AOTD. 2 souls cleanse, Asher Malorum 2 souls cleanse. This map is going to have 2 souls cleansed, and then DLC 3 is going to have 2 souls cleansed, and then all their souls being cleansed are going to have to come together for DLC 4, and there's not going to be a 5. That if you had to tell me, oh, you had to bet, bet money on it, that's how I think it's going to shake out. Now, if
I'm the contrarian, I'd say 1 and 2 souls cleansed, breaking the monotony, 3 and 4 souls cleansed, then 5 is like the big, not the great war of like Apothicons versus Shadows.
But I don't have a problem with either. I don't have a problem with either.
I'd be fine with.
I'm just saying the Great War is going to be 1 map earlier. I think you're being a little too generous. I don't know if they got 4 DLC, 5 DLC maps.
You got to think about it, though. If you look at the leaked maps that are still scheduled and slated here, based on the character bios and stuff, we still have like Takio's map. We still have
that wasn't really true though. That really hasn't been true though.
Yeah, 100%. But at the same time, if they were only going to do 4 DLC maps, then we're looking at. I think the timeline's just weird. The timeline's weird. I don't know. I don't really know.
You're looking for 1 for each OG character if you do 4.
True, but I think it's 1 for each character. But then you have that 5th one that's basically like, here's the all-out warfare, the ending of the storyline going into the next game. Who knows? If there are souls that I will say, to your point, if there are souls collected here, if it's both Weaver and Richthofen, then I'd be like, I feel like the chances of there being a last DLC 5 map go down significantly. But at the same time, to my point here, we're going to have a 3-year gap or a 2-year gap before we see zombies again. So it's like, this would be the time to go out with your bang, finish off, clean up the content here, clean up the go out with a major bang, and then set the table for 2028, which I actually think probably will be the best quote unquote modern zombies game out there, because it'll be the 20th anniversary. I think that's when you'd be likely to see Chronicles 2, especially if they're going back and doing like a restart of the multiverse and the Apothicons again and Monty and the Shadowman, like that. That's probably where you'll see like the payoff for everything we're doing here. But yeah, to get back to the I'll let you finish your point before we move on here.
Well, we're gonna move on, but just really quickly, and I know this is kind of like kind of random, but like, can we at least agree that if Tessie is on this map, there's problems, there's questions, however way you look at it? Because there's no way that it should be on this map. 1, if we're taking Asher Malorum at face value, or number 2, the DG2 side egg, or so there's a side egg we're missing on Asher Malorum to dislodge Tessie. Those are your only options there if it's on this map.
I don't think it's I don't think they would I don't think so. I think that's done. I think it's cooked. I think it's GG's. I think that.
Okay,
I think
good.
That,
okay,
I think
that's what I thought.
Probably
too.
for like a relic. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, because there's still like 2 or 3 relics that haven't been found for this map. So I'm saying like maybe, that's a cool little side Easter egg. You get on the DG2, but there's probably something that you can do for a relic there. But before we get on to our last talking point here for the DLC 2 roundup and we get on to the community corner, I want to go back to Nuketown Zombies really quickly. Nuketown Zombies is one of my favorite zombies maps of all time. Back in the day when I was a kid growing up and really getting into zombies, what made me a lot better at the mode was playing maps like Verrucht, like Nuketown Zombies, like 5. I feel like each of the first few games had these like extremely difficult for no reason maps that were meant to really just be like, hey, how hard can you survive, or how long can you go in a game that's stacked against you, right? Like Verrucht is like, yeah, eventually they developed like the strap or the trap strat, same thing with 5. But like Nuketown was one of those weird cases where it was like, there's no wonder weapon in the box, there's no traps. You're basically just at the mercy of how long can you outlast, and you have the raining random perks into the Pack-a-Punch that was all randomized and stuff like that. Really quick, I'm not going to complain about getting Nuketown Zombies again. I'm so hyped about this. I think this will be the most played survival map on the game, even after the ones that they released in season 4, season 3, 4, 5, whatever, how many seasons there go, how many more survival maps we're getting. I want to put it out there right now. I will be definitely disappointed if there's not randomized perks raining down from the sky, or let's say they were to do, instead of there being, let's say 4 perks and then Wonder Fizz and the pack, maybe they could do like the crafting table falls from the sky, the Pack-a-Punch falls from the sky, the Wonder Fizz falls from the sky, and then an ammo crate falls from the sky, and that's all you have. I think that if they go and they do the regular standard, okay, when you spawn in, Wonder Fizz is in the back of the yellow house, Pack-a-Punch is in the back of the green house, there's ammo boxes in each of the 3 main areas, and then there's, your crafting table in each of the backyards. I'll be kind of a little bit like, man, what the fuck? Because like that's supposed to be Nuketown Zombies is supposed to be your hardcore survival map. That's supposed to be like the most challenging one you're gonna get. I know Zaire Cosmodrome is actually right now the hardest one because there's no trap. So like the high round strat is basically the same as Astra Malorum, which is just run in the corner with a PhD and the launcher at the ground and get the necro fluid out of the box and whatnot. But yeah, I just want to put it out there right now, guys. If there's any, we still got a couple weeks here before this comes out, or maybe that drops the halfway point of next season. I know the idea here is supposed to be low dev time going into these survival maps. They're just supposed to be walled off areas, and that's that. But if there's going to be one map where they break the, pattern of those items being in one area, I just please, I think it'd be really sick to have, okay, maybe Pack-a-Punch, maybe, the crafting table, maybe the armor crate on the ground. That's fine. But if you're going to do this, do it right. Make sure that there's at least your first 4 perks and your Pack-a-Punch are completely randomized, dropping from the sky, and then have the Wonder Fizz drop in at 20 or 25. I think that would work perfectly. I just want to see that kind of aspect be upheld here with a Nuketown survival map, because that's kind of true to the OG one. It would just be it wouldn't be a letdown. I'd still enjoy it. I still think it'd probably be my favorite one to play out of all of them, because like I said, I really enjoy Nuketown. It's a survival map. It's a tough map to play, especially if there's not going to be traps in it, but that would be the only faithful, please just do that kind of thing, because I think that would actually separate it from all the other survival maps, and it would make the replayability of it be a lot higher. Because right now with the survival maps that we have, it seems like your diner, your farm, your Zaire Cosmodrome, and even Mars are going to be lost to time because there's no unique, at least the first 3, at least the first couple ones are going to be lost to time because there's no unique pull in any of the 3 maps. The Necro Fluid Gauntlet is on all 3 of those, which is cool. I'm glad that they added that in. That's, better than no Wonder Weapon. Definitely something I was advocating for. But it seems like as time goes on, people aren't going to come back to these games and play diner survival or farm survival just because they want. There's no unique hook. Like in Black Ops 2 with the survival maps, you played what was the bus depot because there were no perks outside of Quick Revive and there was no Pack-a-Punch. It was just straight this is going to be a real tough challenge. Farm was a step up where you're like, hey, you got perks, but there's no Pack-a-Punch. And then of course Town was you got all the perks that you can get and Pack-a-Punch. I think that's what made it very unique. And then of course to Nuketown Zombies' point, you had the randomized perks dropping from the sky. It was a lot harder. Obviously in the modern engine, Nuketown won't be as hard as Black Ops 2 because it's not 2-hit. You'll have rarity and whatnot, but I think that in some way, shape, or form, they need to find some extra pull to Nuketown Zombies to make it extra special. In my opinion, I'm a little biased because it is one of my favorite maps, but that's my little rant on Nuketown Zombies. If that is coming back, please just find a way to kind of make it consistent and true to the OG one, so it's not just okay, I boot up and I buy 2 doors and I'm at Wonder Fizz, or I buy 2 doors and I'm at this. It'd be very interesting to see how that map plays if they do add some sort of unique twist to the perk spawning or Pack-a-Punch or something like that.
I agree with everything that you said from your perspective of if they do it, they should do it like that. But the more this episode goes on, if you believe the leaks, if you believe the rumors, if you believe the speculation, my level of concern is going higher. That's the first time I think we've said that in this game. And maybe we've just been kind of, we've just been excited for new stuff, and we've been excited. Ash of the Dam look exciting. And I think they did such a good job with Astra Malorum and the overall execution outside of a couple things that we've talked about. But the more we kind of talk about this new season, my level of questioning what's going on here is definitely going up, because I just if you believe that Nuketown is a survival map, I don't agree with that. You cannot do it on this system. You cannot, at least to me, for people that have never played it, break it down into 2 categories. People that have played Nuketown survival versus people that haven't. You could do it for the people that haven't. I think you ruined the whole aspect of Nuketown survival if you try to bring it to the modern system. And that's something that, to be logically consistent, well, in this point, logically inconsistent, but to be kind of talk about me and MZC's track record, we don't really have a problem with the modern system. We don't care. We're not gobble gooners. We're not all these different things. We don't care about armor. We don't care about all these different things. We like the old system. We like the new system. We're not really hypercritical compared to the people who are really critical of the new system. But I truly don't. I think this is the first thing that we've encountered where I really don't think that it's possible on the modern system. The mystique, the difficulty level, like you've been talking about, needs to remain how I think about that map, because I'm right there with you. I love Nuketown Survival. I love Nuketown Zombies. Always have. To this day. One of the better offerings, I think, that a lot of people look over, and it's kind of not remembered, fondly for, it's just not remembered. I think it's remembered fondly, but it wasn't easy, but it's like, I mean, how many people now? I mean, what percentage of the players now would want to play a map where they can't even get to 52, or you're lucky to get to 52? Very low percentage of people. You got to be really good, basically. So I'm at the point where, if they do bring it back, I 100% endorse everything you just said. They would have to do it like that for me to really love it and enjoy it. A, I don't think they're going to do that. 2, I just think they should leave it out to have different survival, do something differently. That's just my opinion.
I think it's all but coming at this point. It's never, if you're going to,
I disagree.
Okay, but if you're going to put it on this system, it's going to be easier no matter what, like no matter how you slice it with the armor.
That's what I'm saying though, so you might as well keep the history of it alive.
I don't know,
it's going to be too easy. It's going to be way too easy
regardless. 100%, it's going to be way easier than OG Nuketown, but that's where I'm like, just at least if you're going to dig it up from the grave, at least just do it justice, like have some sort of a randomized perk system, so you can't just run to the Wonder Fizz and get double tap jug on round 5. Like, just at least have maybe just don't even have a perk spawn in. If you don't want to take the time to code the reigning perks or a reigning pack, maybe just don't have any of that spawn in until 2025, right? That would be pretty tough. Not for you, maybe not for you or I, or maybe the person watching this, because we are in the 1 to 5 percenters, all of us that are currently in this. If you're watching this video, you're a hardcore
still be so easy.
It'll be so easy in comparison, but it won't be
into an armor getting.
It won't be 100,000%. I totally understand, but at the same time, like I said, if they are gonna do it, at least try to artificially increase some sort of like unique pull to the map just to do it justice. But before we get into the community corner, we have one more piece of DLC 2 information here. It's pretty much all but confirmed. This one's probably the most likely out of anything that we've talked about for DLC 2. This is probably like the most, like the safest thing to be like, this is happening, is Widow's Wine is rumored to be coming back. The full redesigned perk model was pulled from the code about a couple weeks ago. Somebody found like the entirety of like the redesigned perk model for the machine, and then the augments have supposedly leaked yesterday, being Extension, Haste, Hatchling, Lethal Equipment, Tangled Web, Web Spinner, Wide Web, and Widow's Bite. We don't have to spend too much time on this, just because it's just a perk. It's nothing too crazy, but we've talked about no reused assets, not wanting to see old things come back post DLC 1. I think this is in the same vein as something like Fireworks, where it's technically a reused thing. Like Fireworks was in BO3, but that was the only game it was in. Personally, it was one of my favorite ones, so like I didn't have a problem with it. It's a little bit different if you didn't like Fireworks back then, but I'm excited for Widow's Wine to come back. I've been wanting this to come back since BO3. This is one of the most iconic perks in Call of Duty Zombies because it only appeared in the GOAT game, BO3. In MW3, we had the redesign for the logo that was on the collector's box. We never saw it then. Ever since then, it's been speculated to come back. We're finally seeing that. I'm personally okay with this. What is your initial thought here on just Widow's Wine coming back, even though it is technically reused? Are you upset with it being a reused thing, or are you just like, it's back?
This is where I'm at right now through us almost having, almost being on season 2. I think they're approaching this title. Put most of your unique developing studio items into the map and the lore and the experience. Obviously outside of the OG crew, but like I said, I think they've done that very masterfully. All the secondary and ancillary stuff, we're just gonna reuse it in, which I don't know. Here's what I'll tell you my problem with it, but I'll tell you my positive note with it. At least it's the cool stuff. At least it's Fireworks. All right, Mule Kick. Or at least they made Mule Kick cool. And Widow's Wine, obviously, I think is a fan favorite. I have no problem with Widow's Wine as a standalone thing, and but in a vacuum, I'm going to go back to this point, and I feel like there's been a good balance between MZC, me and you, of a contrarian and, you know, maybe with the crowd and against the crowd, because I'm going with another against the crowd, kind of back to my too much content things. Like, I don't understand, and maybe this is something a dev could comment or they could let me know, or, you know, what the philosophy was, and I get it. You don't want people finishing stuff too early. You want a long runway with the game, and it's back-to-back years, and you want to have people to hop on and play stuff and this and that. How am I Prestige 5? And people in the comments, well, I'm Prestige Master. I get it. Like, I know Prestige 5 might not be something crazy to brag about. Prestige 6. So, how am I still grinding augments? Like, my biggest complaint is, like, I have to grind the augments for this. Like, why is it taking so long? Why couldn't you give me, you know, I get it. And even playing Black Ops 6, you gave us a big head start on the augment track. How am I still grinding augments? How? The only thing that I look at, see Widow's Wine, I go, okay, cool. Point 1. Point 2 is not cool because I have to grind the augment track. I don't want to do it anymore. And I sound entitled and I sound like an asshole probably, but like, come on. I have put I feel like, to me, I put plenty of hours into this game to have, I'm not even saying I should have everything unlocked, but like, I don't even have 50% of the stuff unlocked. I don't think so. Maybe I could go do the math, but it's like, gee, it's like a snooze fest trying to grind the augments. But that's my only thing. Widow's Wine, cool. I'm just sick of the XP for the augments, but I'll get over it.
I'm in the same, but I don't even think I have I think I'm like 2 augments away or whatever, but that's just because I've taken time off to go do the other camo grinds and stuff. But yeah, it gets to a point where like the last 2 or 3 levels for the augments are, I get it. Having the 2 minor augment slot makes it so much like the power creep is definitely noticeable compared to where you started. But yeah, like the XP towards the end is kind of, it's disgusting. It takes a long ass time, especially without double XP. You're sitting there, and again, it won't be as noticeable as you unlock everything. Then just doing like 1 augment track for Widow's Wine is like, it's what you'll get through it pretty quickly. But yeah, the XP is pretty criminal. But before we go to the community corner really quickly, I do want to talk about some of these augments really quickly. Extension appears to be kind of like just, you know, the webs explode, the zombies get stuck. That probably just makes that longer. Haste, don't really know. Hatchling is interesting. Hatchling could even be like a Zetsubo no Shima type spider will spawn and run around and kill zombies. Pure speculation. Who really knows what that could be? Lethal equipment. My best guess there would be if you have that equipped, your grenade slot with Widow's Wine actually makes the OG grenade. Super cool way to balance it out and do it. So if you want to play like that, you can. But I know back in the day, everybody, if you were high rounding, just threw those out so that you didn't have that happen. Tangled web, interesting. Could maybe just make it like, you know, the zombies get stuck harder. Web spinner, who knows? That could be like a bigger web even, or a bigger explosion radius. Wide web, I guess that could be that too. And then Widow's Bite is the most interesting one to me. I wonder if Widow's Bite is actually oh my god, what was it? Winter's Wail from BO4. I know we kind of already have that in a sense with some of the augments, but you know, everyone said, oh, we're not getting Widow's Wine because it's already a Juggernog augment with reactive armor. Widow's Bite could be more of you can convert Widow's Wine into Winter's Wail from BO4. So the augments sound pretty interesting. Can't wait to get the official descriptions there, but let's not waste any more time. Let's get over to the community corner for our 4 this week.
Absolutely. I'd say Widow's Bite really quickly is probably, if any zombie that is affected by the radius of Widow's Wine gets like infected and it takes damage over time, or gets like poisoned or something. Could be interesting. But we'll see how it goes. All right, like you said, community corner. Let's kick it off here. Stanley557, the GOAT.
My GOAT.
He says, if it truly is Nuketown, then a mix between Alcatraz and Nuketown would be cool. Make the map a twisted, perfect realm. I don't think people would be upset with that if it had its own unique aspects. But if it was just like, oh, we're porting over part of Alcatraz and part of Nuketown, I don't think they're going to do that though. I'm still in the vein of they're not going to do that. It's going to be largely a unique experience. I'm willing it into happening.
Yeah, I think Stanley is pretty consistent here with his take. Like, you know, with when we had him on for talking about the OG crew coming back, it was basically just like, you know what, at this point, I don't care. Just make sure that it's like good, make sure the storyline is coherent and that it's better than what we got in BO6. And I think that's kind of the same thing here. Is like when it got announced, everyone's like, fuck, Alpha Omega, nobody wants this, right? But now it's just kind of like, all right, well, if they're going to do it, like it would be cool to see a hybrid between, you know, maybe a couple older maps pieced together, sort of like how we had Ashes of the Damned. Obviously, it doesn't mean we're going to get a larger scale map like Ashes of the Damned, but something along those veins would be pretty sick. And I'm kind of in the same boat as Stanley here, where it's like, add in a few new unique things. The Blunder guy coming back would be cool if they do it right? So it's not just the tomb where it's, hey, the ice staff's back and it makes no sense. It has absolutely there's no expansion upon it. But if they're like, oh, Brutus is back and this is really the turning point where we kind of find out, hey, the Dark Ether is actually just a place where everything got sucked into at the end of the Ether storyline, and everything's kind of like coming back, or it's still here, it's just been suppressed throughout the eons of the Dark Ether, then it would be pretty interesting to see where we go there. So I totally agree with Stanley and your point here about it would be cool to see if that's kind of the route that they go down, and it sounds like that's kind of where we're heading.
Yeah, I mean, back to kind of what we've been saying all episode, like the intrigue for this map is it's still there, even though you're in the down period. I feel like the tomb kind of just, you might as well just, after everything was Citadel and people complained about the swords, like the tomb just was kind of the nail in the coffin for a lot of people for Black Ops 6. I don't foresee it being the same way. It cannot be the same way. It just can't be, or we're going to be in for basically a rerun of Black Ops 6 Zombies, which I don't think it will be. Moving on, Smugster says, infinite ammo wonder weapons are nice and all, but can we get one with limited ammo to switch it up? And I will simply respond, I totally agree, and make it really powerful. I'm in for super powerful limited ammo. More than unlimited ammo kind of mid. Or if you're going to have an unlimited ammo kind of mid, make sure that building it is it's more acquirable than limited ammo really good. That's my opinion.
I'm right there with you too. I actually replied to this and I said Apothicon Servant incoming, because that's kind of what it is. The Apothicon Servant didn't have infinite ammo. It had a lot of limited ammo, but it was really, really powerful to offset that. So I'd be interested. Obviously, if the Blunder Gat rumors are true, I remember the Blunder Gat, the Acid Gat, and the Magma Gat having a shit ton of ammo. So maybe they kind of put a limit on that. Maybe there's some sort of rework there. Maybe the secondary wonder weapon doesn't have as much. But I mean, with armor or with ammo caches in the game, with the ability to spawn cashbacks, free fires, all that stuff, there's plenty of opportunity for you to get a max ammo in this game. It would be nice to see a more powerful one. I'm not saying the Apothicon Servant, but on the level of the Apothicon Servant, where it's just really, really OP, but you constantly have to be buying ammo for it. So it's not just, hey, you pick up ammo every 5 seconds from Vault Trade and you just sit there like the Ice Staff was, or the Jet Gun. It would be nice to kind of see a little bit of a switch up here, but then balance it out by making it really good. But then, let's say maybe make the ammo caches a little bit more sparse throughout the map to kind of equate for that, where if it was something on the level of a Thunder Gun, on the level of a Wonder Waff, or in Apothicon Servant, there's the risk versus reward of having it versus just being able to sit in a corner next to the ammo cache and just completely fire it off. So Smugster, I'm right there with you. I think that'd be really cool to see them switch up and do.
And guys, actually the preface question, which we might not have mentioned to start here, which we do apologize for, but the preface question for this community corner was, what are your predictions or hopes for DLC 2 and Black Ops 7 Zombies? So I just wanted to bring that up before we go to Mario Kark. He says, new special round enemy, prehistoric type of wonder weapon, DA /construct /warden lore, new special round 11 enemy, haven't gotten one since Tomb. Corruption engines return for power, yes, specifically the Rev ones, Apothicon Keeper lore. A lot of stuff there. Interesting that, that's a lot of callbacks and stuff where it's, like MZC, I'm going to keep going back to this. People don't mind the callbacks if they're done correctly. They weave into the story, in a good manner. Even if it is reused, quote unquote, reused, there's a right way to do reuse. There's a wrong way to do reuse. Same way with remastering, things of that nature. So Mario brings up a good point here. And I agree with a lot of what he says here. I think a new special round enemy, maybe. I definitely, I think that could be needed. Prehistoric type of wonder weapon could be interesting, and then a round 11 enemy. Yeah, I'd be interested for some aspects of all three of those points. I
knew you were gonna skip over the construct because you didn't play Vanguard. But yeah, the construct.
Sorry, Terra Maledicta. How about it? I don't know about it. Sorry, casual.
Yeah, I think the construct. This is the map to do it. Like I said, the image that has come out, or I don't know where the image came from, but the image of the DLC 2 map actually looks very similar to Cortifax's area of the Dark Ether, which was the big bad guy from Vanguard, who was actually really sick. It would be nice to see either some sort of Cortifax mentioning, or just that area being where we're going again, because we haven't seen a red like Dark Ether since then. It would be nice to make it kind of make it like it's basically hell. Corruption engines from Revelations to return, absolutely 100%. We kind of saw that, not the corruption engines, but we saw like the Origins power generators in Ashes of the Damned in a way there to kind of tie in the power. Prehistoric type of wonder weapon would be sick, of course, with the Blunder Gap. If there's a secondary new one, would be cool to see something not like Gorg effects, but like in that same vein of like it's just very like weird apothecary new special enemy round. I think the Ravagers actually make sense for this map, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting a new one. I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, yes, Ravagers are my favorite one of all time, bring it back. But overall, I completely agree with most of what you said. An apothecary / keeper lore would be amazing. Like I said, I think that if they are going to start digging up a lot of the older Ether stuff here, this would be the map to kind of get some, hey, they're still out there, or hey, they didn't really die, they were just banished to the Dark Ether, because that's what was stated at the end of the storyline in BO4. So yeah, I think the lore could go really, really hard on this map, even if it isn't like a big, drastic, huge, expansive map in itself.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think the kind of the main takeaway from Mario there is that they do have a lot of options to play with if it goes down that path. So we'll have to wait and see. Last and final here from Disco Muffin. They say the vibe should be drastically different than the last two maps, which I'm betting it will be. If it really is an Alpha Omega remake, Rushmore must return. Also, wouldn't mind seeing or getting a mention of the Victus crew. Maybe Avogadro 2 or an Avogadro themed special enemy. If they do reuse a wonder weapon from the past, I'm hoping for a completely new one to come alongside it. I agree with that last point as well. I think a unique wonder weapon would do wonders for every single map of this game. That's something we've been harping on and chirping about since Black Ops 6 really started and what we saw with that game. However, I want to just give credence to a lot of, somebody else said this in your replies as well, but Rushmore definitely would have to be a special round, elite enemy somehow, boss fight, incorporated in the boss fight. I think the theme of this community corner is that they have a lot of options for DLC too. So we're just going to have to see what they come up with and what they put out to us.
I think you're right too. And I think that as we've kind of gone further into the episode and gotten to the community corner, we're seeing more and more of this like, hey, old isn't necessarily bad, like you said, if it's done correctly, and there are right ways to do it, there are wrong ways to do it. And it does seem like people are kind of getting more and more hyped about the idea of like, hey, what if the Avogadro comes back? Because he was a huge player in, of course, Alpha Omega. We saw him in Transit too, but the deep lore, he was Cornelius Purnell, who had been around for a long time. You've got Rushmore coming back. That'd be super sick too if he was like the main maps, like UI that you're talking to. I don't think he'd be necessarily like a Shadowsmith or anything, but just having like Rushmore be kind of like the announcer for the member in the map in some way, shape, or form would be amazing. Call back to Alpha Omega and just, that whole map in general. And of course, the vibe being shifted drastically would be really sick as well. So I'm here for it. I'm totally locked in. I'm excited to see what happens here. I think again, the vibe will be more so of like the red Dark Ether. I'm really excited here for everything that we have coming up here inside of DLC 2.
Absolutely. I think the interest level is there. I think while people are kind of understanding of this being a lull in everything going on, I think that it makes a lot of sense for what Treyarch needs to do moving forward as far as, hey, there's some people who have kind of fallen off the game and maybe they aren't playing as much, or maybe they're like us and they went over to multiplayer, or they went over to Resurgence or Warzone, and that's even more power to Treyarch. Like, hey, you made a game that has many different facets that we want to play, so it's not all bad at the end of the day. Zombies for a lot of people is more of a chronological thing. Like, hey, we love the build up to the map, we love the build up to the lore, we want to get our hands on the Easter egg, or we want to get to around 100 on a new offering, and we want to beat the boss fight and see how many different ways we could actually play the map and all these different things we can experience. So I still think that the interest level is going to be there, and I think that we're just going to have to wait and see. This week upcoming, they should start kicking up the advertising for whatever they're going to call this DLC 2 map. But MZC, anything final thoughts before we move over to the post show?
I'm excited for this, man. I'm excited for DLC 2, for content to start wrap it up again here. It's been a nice little downtime, I guess, from zombies. We haven't really had too much of it over the past year and a half, so it was nice to kind of check out and refresh. I feel like the podcast was we were pretty good today in terms of the flow. It wasn't anything really rusty. It was probably a needed break for us as well. So yeah, I'm ready to go into Path After Dark, whatever we're calling it, the post show here. And again, if you are interested in becoming a Perkaholic, definitely go ahead and join that in the join section below. We did rework the memberships as we talked about in the beginning of the video, and this is where we're really going to want to do some fun things over there for some extra content for those of you that are willing to continue to support the podcast and continue to watch us grow. As we'll probably mention over there too, you guys should leave your thoughts for what we should do in the post show. Give us some ideas whether you want to see what kind of content you want to see, what you want to see us hit on, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely appreciate every single one of you being here for the duration. Like MZC said, we're probably going to do a weapon tier ranking video in the post show. So if you want to see that, make sure you're subscribed and you're in that tier 2 Perkaholic membership class, and that video will be available right after this episode goes live. Perkaholics Anonymous podcast episode 24. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure you're commenting down below. Make sure you got bell notifications on so you do not miss an MZC upload in the future. Make sure you're staying hydrated, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.